If you grew up anywhere near the old railroad towns of the American Midwest, you've probably heard a ghost story or two. Tales of vanished locomotives, missing crews, and lights flickering across abandoned tracks at night. But none of those stories come close to the bewildering, well-documented, and chillingly real incident that unfolded at a remote junction in southern Illinois in the winter of 1911. An event so thoroughly investigated, so widely reported, yet so impossible to explain, that it still troubles historians and railway scholars to this day. It is known as the Vanishing at Blackwater Station, and more than a century later, it remains one of the strangest unsolved disappearances in American history. To understand the mystery, you must picture Blackwater Station as it existed in the early 20th century, a solitary wooden structure standing beside a lonely single-track railway that cut through 30 miles of unbroken forest. There was no town, no settlement, merely a refueling and telegraph point built by the Illinois Southern Rail Company in 1884, maintained out of necessity rather than importance. By 1911, 5 men lived and worked there: station master Walter Green, telegraph operator Samuel Rigg, maintenance workers Elias Ford and Jeb Carter, and a young apprentice telegrapher, 19-year-old Matthew Cole. Their lives were simple and isolated. They worked 6 days straight, slept in cramped bunkhouses, read newspapers weeks old, and waited for the next train to arrive. Winters were punishing, summers lonely, but the pay was decent and the station operated without incident. Until the morning of February 3rd, 1911. Shortly after dawn, Freight Train 47 rolled toward Blackwater Station. The engineer, Henry Lowell, immediately sensed something was wrong. There was no smoke rising from the chimney, no movement on the platform, no lantern glowing in the station window. In 14 years, he had never once seen Blackwater unstaffed. As the train slowed, Lowell sounded the whistle. No answer came. He sent his brakeman, Tom Reeves, to inspect the grounds. Reeves returned moments later, pale and shaken, telling Lowell that the station was empty, completely and utterly empty. Lowell climbed down to see for himself. The doors were unlocked. The telegraph room was deserted. The stove was cold. 2 coffee cups sat on the table, one of them still faintly warm, suggesting it had been poured not long before dawn. The beds were neatly made, boots were missing from their racks, lanterns were gone, as if the men had dressed and stepped out into the night. And yet, the snow outside was untouched. Fresh snowfall had blanketed the station grounds, and there were no footprints. None leading in, none leading out, none anywhere. 5 men had dressed, left the building, and somehow exited the world without disturbing a single flake of snow. The last telegraph from Blackwater Station had been sent at 10:16 p.m. the previous night. It read, 47 eastbound delayed. Unusual noises north of line. Investigating. Will report.
Boot print,
A
size
second
12.
message followed half an hour later. Strange tracks near
Looks
tree
like our
line.
man was in a hurry.
Not animal. No more messages were received, even though the telegraph line continued functioning until morning. Whatever the men encountered after 10:46 p.m. silenced them before they could explain. Lowell ordered Reeves to walk the tracks in both directions while he searched the bunkhouse and tool shed. Nothing was overturned, no signs of struggle, no blood, no broken tools, no indication of violence or panic. Only an eerie absence. When Reeves returned, he reported finding strange marks in the snow near the tree line. Not footprints, drag marks, smooth, wide trails, as though something heavy had been pulled sideways across the snow. But these trails didn't lead into the woods or back toward the station. They simply began and ended abruptly, as if whatever made them appeared and vanished without traveling the distance between.
Lowell and his crew telegraphed the regional office from the next junction. By noon,
A 12-man search team and Deputy Sheriff Harold Mercer arrived at Blackwater Station. Mercer's written statements, now preserved in the Jefferson County Historical Society, described a chilling scene. Every personal item remained: coats, books, tobacco tins, shaving kits, everything except the men's boots and lanterns. There were no signs of violence, no animal tracks, no wagon tracks, nothing. The forest search expanded 1 mile, then 2, then 10. Not a single trace of the missing men was found. Newspapers across the Midwest erupted with headlines attempting to explain what had happened. Some blamed a sudden snowstorm, but the men's coats were still inside, and there were no footprints. Others blamed bandits, but no valuables were stolen, and no horse or wagon tracks existed. Theories of mass desertion were dismissed because the men left all their belongings behind, and their pay had not yet arrived. Animal attack was impossible: no blood, no torn clothing, and no tracks. Internal railway memos later revealed that investigators themselves considered the drag marks near the trees to be unlike any known animal or equipment. One memo stated, "Something approached them that night." Nearby homesteaders reported hearing a deep, rhythmic humming sound around 11 p.m., metallic, resonant, unnatural. These testimonies were never included in official reports. 3 days later, federal officials arrived, men who refused to give names or credentials. They ordered locals away, dismantled sections of the telegraph line, confiscated station logs, and conducted surveys with unfamiliar equipment. They stayed 5 days, then vanished. When Illinois Southern asked for their materials back, the federal office claimed no such investigation had occurred. Blackwater Station was decommissioned in May 1911. Train schedules were rerouted. The buildings were left to rot. By 1920, the station collapsed. By 1935, it had disappeared beneath the regrowth of the forest, erased from sight, but not from memory. Decades later, new information emerged. In 1978, retired railway archivist John E. Waldron claimed he had copied documents before the company destroyed its archives. One such document described a frozen boot found 6 miles north of the station. It belonged to station master Walter Green. Inside the boot was tissue, heel bone, tendons, skin, cleanly separated, with no tearing, no claw marks, no crushing, no blade marks. The physician's report concluded separation occurred by unknown mechanism. Waldron was dismissed at the time, but some of his claims were later validated by private collectors who acquired surviving telegraph transcripts. The noises were real. The tracks near the woods were real. In 1969, brakeman Tom Reeves, the man who had first investigated the station with Lowell, confessed on his deathbed that he had seen lights in the woods that morning, not lanterns, white blue lights moving too fast for any person to carry. He said Lowell had told him to remain silent because nobody would believe us. Reeves ended his letter with a chilling line: "Whatever happened to those men, it wasn't done by human hands." In the 1990s, researchers armed with modern equipment made further discoveries at the abandoned site. Compasses spun wildly due to magnetic disturbances. Ground-penetrating radar detected large, symmetrical metallic shapes deep underground, shapes not matching any railway equipment from the era. And low-frequency humming sounds were recorded during winter, similar to the noises reported in 1911. No explanation has been verified. In 2004, telegraph operator Samuel Riggs' great-granddaughter donated an unfinished letter he had written the day before his disappearance. Its final lines read, "There is something in these woods tonight. Elias says it's just the wind, but I have never heard wind make that sound before." I hope to God
Did
it
you
is
hear that?
only an animal.
It sounds like it's getting
The
closer.
letter ends mid-word,
Stay quiet, everyone.
the ink smeared as though the pen had been torn from his hand. Over 100 years later, the Vanishing at Blackwater Station remains one of America's most disturbing historical mysteries. No bodies were found, no cause identified, no footprints recorded. The government intervened and concealed information. Every man vanished on the same night, and the telegraph line was manually switched off at 10:48 p.m., meaning someone, still alive, physically threw the disconnect lever. Whoever did that was the last living witness to whatever approached the station that night. Whether it was a person, an animal, a group, a machine, a natural phenomenon, or something entirely unknown, we do not know. We may never know. All we do know is that a lonely railway outpost in the dead of an Illinois winter became the stage for one of the strangest episodes in American history, and that the 5 men who lived and worked there stepped into the darkness together and were never seen again.